I am really honored to be here. The speakers that I am following, I am just humbled to actually be a part of this, and thank you for that. You know, I look back and you look at what the big picture is. What is the real picture here? You know, at this point in this event, we're fighting for something that the Bill of Rights have already given us an opportunity. They've given us the freedom to have. And I think about that for a minute, and I think of why are we where we are? How do we get here? I mean, are you thinking about exactly what you're doing right now and why you're here? Have you ever thought about that? Why am I sitting here fighting for something that over 200 years ago we had founding fathers that got this, that figured this out, and now we're sitting here fighting for the very thing that they put together. And you're thinking, how do we get here? Well, I'm going to try to explain that as quickly, and I'm not going to get into the weeds, but I want to give you a couple things of oversight that I just want to share with you. And I want to share with you my heart. I cannot ever even get this out, but Mr. and Mrs. Vaughn, I want to thank you personally. I want to thank you personally for the sacrifice that your family's made for my freedom, for me being able to get up here and talk and say things openly and assemble that we are. Thank you, and I want to thank all of our veterans for giving your lives for what I have the opportunity to do. The greatest opportunity I've ever had was on an honor flight several months ago. And on that honor flight, I'll never forget that day because I had the opportunity to escort World War II veterans to our capital. And I won't get into the details of that, but that was probably one of the greatest honors I have. So how did we get here? How did we get to this place in time in America? Well, I want to give you a couple of statistics. These were put out by an organization called the Barnum Group. And here's a couple of statistics I want to give you. 70% of adults today do not know that the United States Constitution is the ultimate law of the land. 70% of adults today do not know that. This was put out by Barnum Group. 62% of adults today do not know the three branches of our government. 62% do not know that. Here's another number. 60% do not know specifically about the judicial branch of our government. They have no idea what it's about. 60%. You're thinking, well, how did this happen? Well, here's one idea that I personally have is what happened. You see, back in 1962, the U.S. Supreme Court got very, very involved in the education system of our country. They put things in place that this is where we are today. In 1962 and 1963, they actually removed God from all parts of public education. That's what happened. Now, you think about that and think, well, what's the big deal? Well, I'm going to explain that here in just a few minutes. But this is where we are. Public education, this is a product of what we have in public education, is we have adults now that have grown up through our education system that they do not know anything about U.S. history. They do not know anything about our founding fathers. The quotes that I see on a lot of shirts today, they have no idea where those quotes even came from. So this is where we are today. And I want to go back to our education. I want to give you some examples of what's going on. I have a history book that I talk about a lot of times when I give speeches, and I hold this history book up. Actually, we have a state senator that actually has the book, and we'll give his name right now. He has the book, he's reviewing it, and it's a U.S. history book. It's been approved by Florida Department of Education, and it's in 50% of the schools in the state of Florida. Okay, 50% of all the schools in the state of Florida this book is in. In this history book, it's a world history book for high school students. In this world history book, there are 36 pages of Islam in the world history book. Now you're saying, well, it's a history book. What's the big deal? Well, I would tend to agree with you. I would think it would be more of a world religions class or something of that nature, but I'm good with that. I'm okay with that. But when you read the 36 pages in this history book, it is not just the historical information of Islam. What it's basically doing is it's propagating the religion of Islam. It is propagating the religion of Islam. In the very same history book, there is a paragraph of Christianity and a paragraph of Judaism. Okay? This is in 50% of the books, high school history books across this state. That's what is in our school system. Okay? Here's my point. Anytime a state can't get this right, when we have a conservative legislature in this state, what makes us think that the federal government is going to get it right in our education of our children? So, how do we handle this? What do we do? The fight is on, and this is what it's about. There's something that's come across, and I'm going to explain it. It's called Common Core Standards. I'm going to be very, very quick about it. But in Common Core Standards, basically what happened is when all the states across our nation was in great economic turmoil, especially in our education system, there was a race to the top grant that was an opportunity to receive funding from the federal government to the state for education. There's a couple caveats. Now, it's a grant. So the legislative process was completely circumvented because this grant could be done without legislative process. Well, many of the states were in financial trouble. What happened is there are a couple caveats in the grant. One of the caveats was that they would implement Common Core Standards. Now, everybody says it's state-led, etc., but the bottom line is the federal government pushed this upon the states by offering them a grant. But if they accept the grant, there's two things that had to happen. There's several things, but one of the things that had to happen is that they would implement Common Core Standards. Common Core Standards is something that has been literally pushed down by the federal government. I will not get into the weeds of it, but the bottom line is this. Anytime as a state we allow the federal government to usurp the 10th Amendment, that's exactly what happens. That's exactly what happens. And this has happened within the Common Core Standards. So we have this. In addition to that, here's another caveat that they put in there, that the states would align themselves with a data system that's tied into the federal government. Now, that data system picks up 400 points of information from our children and, quite frankly, from the families. Within these 400 data points, there are things such as religious affiliation, such as political affiliation, things as, it goes on and on and on. And when that happens, once again, we are giving the government more and more and more control. And I'm going to end by saying this. See, our founding fathers came up with this document, and it's called the Constitution. And the reason they came up with this document was for this reason. They knew that man was inherently evil. They knew man was inherently evil. And when man got more and more power, they became more and more evil. They understood that. So they made this document called the U.S. Constitution. And within that Constitution, this is what that document's about. It's to protect man from the government, not to protect government from man. I'm going to close with this. Chief Justice Roberts made this statement. This is what he said. He said that he was talking in reference to specifically the 10th Amendment. He said states better start acting like there's a 10th Amendment. Thank you guys for your time. God bless you. I do have some policy analysis books that gets into the details of Common Core, and I'll be more than glad to give them out. I'll get your name and some information, but I want to get those to you today. So thank you and God bless you.